I was putting off doing a 425 invocation raid for a while just because I was waiting for better gear or a Keris or something. But eventually I just realized I should just go for it, and I got it on my first try, so I'm just going to put together a video about some tips for you and what might help you. Obviously, I wouldn't call my gear extremely budget because I have a T-bow, but you could definitely do this with a Bofa. My run was pretty tight at the end though, so you would have to do better than I did, but it's still definitely doable, I would say. Also, the Bone Dagger is just there because I put Overly Draining on, since I don't really have any other good specs, and I figured that the Warden Phase 2 would be long anyways, so, 15 Invocation points or a faster Warden P2, I figured I'd rather have the Invocation points. So if you don't know what the Bone Dagger does, if you are not the last person to hit your target, which is the case every time you run in the solo, then it's guaranteed to hit, and it reduces your opponent's defense by how much damage you hit. Now, the nice thing about that is obviously that it's guaranteed, but also that in Tombs of a Mascot, you can only reduce boss defense by a pretty small amount most of the time, maybe up to 20 for most cases, so you don't really need a huge hit in order to drain their defense. And I figured this would be better than a BGS with Overly Draining on. So to go over some invocations, obviously hardcore run. I don't use any of the timers because my run ended up being around 45 minutes. I don't use any of the help reducers either, simply because that without any of them on, that guarantees you get 2 salts in the chaos, in the power, and then you can choose life the next time, and I needed those supplies from life to make it through the run. The path invocations, I use Pathfinder, which is level 2 everything. I wasn't comfortable doing level 4 in 3 rooms. I can only do level 4 in 2 rooms, which were the last 2 rooms, Arca and Baba, so that's why I did Pathfinder instead of Pathmaster, but if you're more comfortable, you can definitely do that. Deadly Prayers, make sure you bring more prayer to compensate. On a Diet, Overly Draining, that one's probably the most controversial. More Overloads, I'll show you how to play around this in the Kefi room. And then Upset Stomach, because I do Z-Back first, so at that one, I feel like if you do Z-Back first, it's not too bad. If you leave it till the end, though, then there's a pretty high chance you might mess up and die, and that's really frustrating, so up to you on your path. You can also definitely turn on more of the Arca invocations, but I just don't really like them, so I just stick to Feeling Special and Stay Vigilant, all of the Baba ones and all of the Warden ones, of course, so that's what I went with. Just a note, though, that in total is actually 430 points. If you want to hit 425, just turn on Jungle Japes. I just figured, why not do the extra 5? I didn't feel like it would make or break the run, so up to you, of course. The path I end up doing is Z-Back, then Kefri, then Baba and Arca, and whichever order they do, it doesn't really matter. I do them interchangeably. So my justification for that is just that Z-Back, first of all, he's kind of hard to do level 4, so I don't like putting him off, even though it's technically faster. And also, because of Upset Stomach, there's a lot of chances things could go wrong, so I just do him first. Kefri second is pretty normal. And then Arca and Baba, it's nicer and easier to do with assaults, so... And they're also the only rooms that I feel comfortable with doing at level 4, so that's how I routed the run. I honestly don't feel like there's that much to say on Zebek. You kind of just do him as normal, and there's not much different in this run, unless you're not sure about Upset Stomach. If you've never used Upset Stomach before, the main thing you need to know is that the jugs explode in a 3x3 instead of a 5x5, so you have to be a lot more careful and meticulous about how you push your jugs. And sometimes you can no longer just push them in. Like, if they pop one tile in front of the rock, then it's not going to cover behind the rock, because it's now only a 3x3. So that's just something you have to be wary of, but other than that, Z-Back is pretty much normal. Kefri is where things start to get a little different, so if you've never used more Overlords before, what that does is it makes it so that every round of the shield phase spawns 1 extra big scarab. So originally, after you first get her down, there's 1 spitting scarab that spawns, right? But instead, this time, there's going to be 1 spitting and 1 melee. And then the next time, where there's usually 1 melee and 1 arcane, there's also another spitting there. So the thing that's nice is that they always spawn in the same place. So what you actually want to do is, as soon as you run into the Kefri room, go into the northeast corner of the room, and so that she dungs that line. And what that'll do is that'll put a barrier between you and the melee, which can save you a lot of health. And the thing is, the melee always spawns on the east side, so you can completely box it in and trap it if you cover both the northeast corner and the southeast corner. Now, there's not always going to be enough time to do that in the first Kefri phase, because if you kill her too fast, she won't dung you twice. So you can either delay and let her dung you twice to completely block off that area, or you can just let her dung you once and then try and kill the ranged scarab before the melee comes all the way around. And then the next time she gets back up, dung the southeast side. That way the melee will be trapped and you'll be totally fine killing the arcane and the spitting. And if you're wondering why I didn't do that here in the clip, that's just because this was my first time ever using more Overlords and I kind of forgot about it. So I do it later, don't worry. Also, another note is that the Bone Dagger actually, for whatever reason, doesn't work on Kefri. I think it's still worth specking her because she's weak to stab, and so you might hit her anyways, but it is not a guaranteed hit for whatever reason, no idea why. So what I did here was I just tried to kill the ranger as quickly as possible before the melee came around to me, and then in the next spawn, I pray range, prioritize the arcane, obviously, and then kill the range. And then once all that's said and done, you switch to mage and kill the melee. If you have a shadow, you'll decimate the meleeer, but with just a trident, it's not really amazing, but it'll do the job. Baba is also a boss I don't have too much to say about it. If you're unused to doing high invocation, high level Baba, he can hit a lot through prayer. If you are familiar with the Red X method, you can obviously use that. I just didn't really feel like it. But he does hit a lot through prayer, so a Blood Fury definitely helps here. And also his rocks drop extremely fast, so make sure you just get out of the way. Like, you can't just sit there and wait for it to fall for a bit, unlike lower level Baba. Make sure you kill the baboons too. At lower invocations, I didn't really kill them, but you don't want them opening a bunch of sarcophagi, because the fight can go kind of long, and that can actually hurt you quite a bit. And finally, if you're not used to Mind the Gap being on, or Boulder Dash, so for Mind the Gap, just make sure that you are not like in the center of the room when he transitions, and you just have to keep that in mind the whole time. You can turn on boss enemy health percentage in enemy information plugin in Runelight, and that might help you. And for Boulder Dash, the boulders just come a lot faster, so you have to be a lot more careful and less greedy about getting through them. The other thing to note is that if Baba is level 4, the rocks will have 31 HP. And so for me, with my gear setup, I couldn't one-shot them with rune darts. So I actually brought dragon darts specifically just to hit through the rocks. But it depends on what gear you have, what Masori you have, etc, etc. So that's something you kind of need to figure out yourself on whether or not your blowpipe can one-shot the rocks. Other options would include like bringing a Bofa or something. It's up to you. So Arca, I don't do butterfly or anything, but I would definitely recommend just running around and kiting him in the first phase, because that way you can get him down all the way to 80% health for free. You don't have to use any prayer or health, which is really nice. So definitely recommend doing that. And then there's not much else to say about Arca, except if you've not done him at level 4 before, that means his Simon Says memory special will have 6 attacks instead of 5 or 4. And that might be kind of hard to get used to at first if you've never done it before, and might be a pain point or somewhere where you would die, but other than that, he's pretty normal. One last tip I have about the come phase is that I actually find it very helpful if you aim your camera directly up. So in order to enable that, you need to go to the camera plugin in Runelight and check vertical camera. And that lets you go to a direct overhead view, kind of like a tactical view, and you can see all the orbs coming at you. And I just find that it makes it so much easier to not die on the last phase of Arca. And if you are not used to say Vigilant either, he basically can just change style at will, but remember, it still goes in the same order that it did before. He can just change it randomly now. So, at random times, I mean. So, you still go in the same order as before, like he melees, then he ranges, then he mages. Sorry, I don't know why, I just forgot what he did for a second. There's also some tricks that people have where they mark certain styles of his a different color, and they pay attention to when the color changes. I think that's pretty unnecessary. Like, you can just look at his overhead prayers and see when they switch. But if you need some help, that might be something to look into. And honestly, that's pretty much it. The hard part of doing this is getting to Wardens, not necessarily finishing Wardens, unless you really struggle with Insanity or the last phase where the tiles are getting ripped away. But for all of that, you kind of just need to practice at lower invocations, like a 300 level expert, and practice Insanity. You really do have to be familiar with Insanity to make it through here already, so if you're not, you should do some 300s first. Otherwise, for Wardens, my phase 2 was a 4 down, but it was very close to being a 3 down, so I think maybe there was some ways I could have 3 downed it with just a rapier and no spec weapon. So that was not even really a big deal. 3 down is totally fine. 4 is even fine too. It was a bit extra draining on supplies, but whatever. Although, not gonna lie, my supplies were very tight at the end. You can see I barely had anything left. And I'm also not gonna lie, like at the very end, I was probably about to die if I survived any longer, or if the fight went on any longer. Because I got last row, I'm pretty bad at last row, and I was just getting hit by everything at that point. If you do want help last rowing, though, I know I'm not extremely good at it, but I do have the idea of how to do it, which is just that there's a way where you can step on a tile that has lightning on it right as the lightning strikes, and then it's a safe tile. Like, it won't hit you if you move on it right as it strikes. So those are actually safe tiles, and you should try to step on those when you have nowhere to go. And that's really the key to last rowing, although, like I said, I'm not really that good at it. So I don't know if I'm the best source for that. But yeah, other than that, good luck with this. I just wanted to show that it was possible. I know it's not really impressive or anything, but at least I didn't know for sure if it was possible for me to do a 425 without a Shadow or a Keris or any like best in slot gear really besides a Debo. Well, I have the Fang too. I mean armor, I guess. But it really is. So, yeah, in the hopes that this helps anyone, I'm just putting this out there. But yeah, good luck, guys.